We at Time Shifters hope that you enjoyed this rare and infamous moment that combines a first-rate disaster with genuine historical significance. But now it's time to take a deep breath as we prepare to temporarily reset you. Get your cars to Mars.
Hey there, everyone. This is Christopher, and I'd like to welcome you to the Time Shifters podcast. On this show, Tom and I dive into movies and TV, mostly in the sci-fi, fantasy, and horror genres, and share some thoughts, give our reviews, and definitely go on a few tangents or two. Let's get things going. Tom, how you been?
It's been very, very busy lately.
I understand. Yeah, it's been busy. That is just the way things are, I think, anymore.
Kind of, yes. The world's a crazy place, and there are lots of crazy stuff going on at work. So,
yeah. Have you had time to do anything fun?
Well, I always make time for fun, but unfortunately, a lot of that's even been just getting work done. Like, I put in a crazy weekend of 4 hours worth of yard work and stuff like that. Otherwise, I haven't sat down and watched a whole lot of stuff that wasn't stuff that I couldn't fall asleep to.
Yeah, understood. I have tried. I didn't make any plans to do it, and I certainly didn't make any promises to do it beforehand, but I am trying to do a little bit of 31 Nights of Halloween.
Oh, nice.
I'm trying to watch a something horror film, horror themed every night, even if it's just maybe an episode of Tales of the Dark Side.
Oh, nice.
A quick half an hour or something like that.
I can't do Tales of the Dark Side.
No?
For fear of one episode.
Oh, interesting. Well, I can't wait to get to that episode. I brought some DVDs home from the library, just playing around in the season 1 right now.
Okay. Yeah.
And they are a great deal of fun. That was a series that I just used to catch every now and again late at night. Wasn't anything I ever sought out. It was just I happened to be up and flipping around, and I just remember that opening and there's a dark side and all that, and I'm like, and I'd sit there and watch. It's just a fun little nice slice of like 1980s television.
Yeah, and I don't know why. I know that there are horror series now. I've even watched some of them, like the MGM one From, which I've been fascinated by. But for whatever reason, I think of the horror series that came out of the 80s as like the quintessential horror stuff. They were just always... They always struck that right balance between kind of fun and creepy. Because, I mean, that's your Tales of the Dark Side. That's the Crypt Keeper stuff. Friday the 13th, the series. That kind of thing. Those kind of things just seem just right in that time period.
I look at them as being really great kind of like horror gateways for young kids. I have to think there was a lot of, preteen, young teen that sat down and watched these things and, went on a life of loving horror films.
No, in fact, like I said, there is an episode of Tales of the Dark Side that I probably got introduced to it a little too soon.
Interesting. It's so far, most of the ones I've seen have been pretty tame. There's been some, I'll say, disturbing themes, and everything, but it's all done without being terribly scary. But of course, I'm a middle-aged man.
Right.
I might think it differently if I was 10.
and that's the thing. If I could ever find the episode, I'd probably have to challenge myself with it again just to let myself finally off the hook. But then there's a part of me that doesn't want it because I almost like that it's there.
Yeah.
And I know the one. I don't know what it was called, but I remember the creature itself in it. The best way I could describe it was an a smaller albino ET.
Okay, interesting.
It lived in one of those little diminutive doors,
Yes, I know the one you're.
and it kept getting in under the bed.
And terrorizing a young girl that was sleeping in the room. Yes, that was in early season 1. Just watched that one, not just maybe a week ago.
Yeah, that one has set me through life absolutely terrified of that thing.
It may have just been something like Monster in the Closet or something like that.
That would make sense, but yeah, between the tiny door and this particular creature, and it did look creepy as hell. And then the fact that it was terrorizing a kid in their room, and this is supposed to be the room they sleep in. And then like everything about it at the time in my life where I saw that just freaked me the hell out.
Oh, I can absolutely see where a young kid watching that. That would be there's a monster under my bed. You know, no, Daddy, leave the light on.
Yeah, it had all of those, but that got paired because they all came from the same time period of like the first miniseries for V and the alien baby that
Yes.
that for the longest time that thing creeped me the hell out until I did finally see it again, and I'm like, it's a green bell pepper.
Yeah.
No wonder I don't like green bell peppers.
Now, I know exactly what where you're coming from
Yeah.
because it was the made-for-TV movie Gargoyles that did it for me.
Oh, okay. And then see, for whatever reason, when I saw that one, that was laughable to me.
I saw
They were
it.
freaky, but
I saw that. Well, and I've said this before, and I'm sure I've said it on the show. It wasn't so much the film that I remember scaring me, but it inspired a nightmare. When in that nightmare where this gargoyle, jumping down in front of the car or whatever like that. And that scared me enough. That nightmare stayed with me my entire life. And it was 30 some odd years before I could sit down and watch Gargoyles. I finally just said, okay, I'm like 40 something years old. I'm going to watch this damn film that inspired this nightmare that has kept me away from it. And yeah, I've seen it like twice since then.
yeah.
No nightmares. It's fine.
Yeah.
Yes, it's made for TV. It's made for TV. It's very tame.
Yes, it's cheesy as hell. But
Oh, it's very cheesy. So I've, overcome, that particular little bit of nostalgic nightmare fuel. But I know exactly what you're talking about.
the funny thing, and the last thing I'll touch on with this Tales from the Dark Side, I actually saw at one point on that Monsters in Motion website, the collectibles website. They had a little diorama with that Tales from the Dark Side creature. They're like, hell no! Get me off the page. I don't want to see it. Nope.
That's brilliant. Oh, that's fantastic.
Yeah. So could I diffuse it by watching it? Probably. Am I going to? I don't know.
Oh, fair enough.
Yeah.
That was a good one. Like I said, that was early on in the first season. That was a good one. There was another one that I found really interesting because it had to have been one of the first, not the first, because someone else reminded me that Tron actually came out a couple years before it. But the premise was the idea of this kid had managed to upload himself into the network, quote unquote. And, this is early 80s. The internet did not exist, not as we know it. There was no World Wide Web. There was this ethereal network.
Yes.
And I thought, that's incredible watching this story. And it's like, is this like one of the first? And I think Steve pointed out, I was like, well, there was a couple books and then Tron, a couple years prior to that. But like, oh, okay, yeah, I hadn't thought about the time frame, but it was really early. And to see the idea of someone purposely uploading their consciousness into a computer or into the network was really interesting. It also started a very young Justine Bateman, which
wow.
would have been just about the same time as the first couple years of Family Ties.
Okay.
And I'm watching that, and my wife is watching it, and I'm like, I think I probably had a bit of a crush on her when I was younger. She's like, I think a lot of guys did.
Oh yeah. We all. I know I was a Justine Bateman. Family Ties, totally.
She was very adorable.
I'm certain.
But yeah, it's been a fun series to kind of get into because, like I said, it wasn't anything I watched regularly. So a lot of these things I'm watching for the first time.
Sure.
It's going to be fun when I finally hit on one that go, that's where that memory came from.
We almost could do a year of just freaky TV shows.
Yeah, it has actually got me thinking of because the anniversary, Chris Cooling has been from Forgotten TV, has been really great about posting sort of anniversaries of when shows first premiered over on the Time Shifters Facebook group, as well as a few other social media places. And he brought up the fact that it was the premiere date of Friday the 13th, the series, which you mentioned earlier. And between the Tales of the Dark Side and then him bringing that, it was like, that might be another DVD I have to try to track down from the library if it's not available on some streaming service somewhere. That might be fun to revisit because that one I was watching fairly regularly. And not just because of Robbie.
The other one that would have been rough, it might have been more the 90s time frame, but the resurgence of the Twilight Zone before the more current attempt. I actually remember that series fairly fondly. Like, it was still in the same vein of Rod Serling and all, so...
I have that one and Amazing Stories kind of blended in my head, I think. So yeah, it's fun going back and watching some of the stuff from that you remember, and when it actually holds up to at least be enjoyable.
Yeah.
If not frightening, enjoyable.
Yeah. No. And like I said, you even mentioning it is a trigger. So.
Yeah, understood. Well, we can leave that one behind.
Wait, what? What do you mean?
I haven't. Outside of that, I really haven't come across anything worth mentioning. I've kind of just been in that sort of cheesy 80s horror kind of mood.
Yeah.
And as I posted on the last horror film, I watched the film called Necromancer, which I had not seen before.
Okay.
And the first line in my review is like, 80s horror, where the kills are arbitrary and the plots don't matter.
Yeah, the point is just to get from kill to kill to kill.
Exactly.
Story? Who needs a story?
You only need the most basic of stories, and then you go from there.
It's a guy with a machete near a campground. What do you want? I mean, that's just more or less 80s horror.
A little bit. You just got to have somebody with an axe to grind, sometimes literally.
No, I'm having a hard time getting into October, and I really do need to maybe try on some horror here soon.
Yeah, I kind of trying to use this to get myself a little motivated myself. Not having a kid in the house, my son is off at college.
Yep.
He was always my kind of partner when it came to Halloween and the decorations and all that. And with him not being home, every year it's getting a little harder and harder to really work up the gumption to go ahead and put decorations out.
Yeah, no, I haven't gotten my decorations out yet, and just trying to figure out even when that's going to happen. And I'm kind of sad.
We've actually got, looks like a week of decent weather and a weekend that's going to be actually fairly nice here. So I might start this weekend and we'll get it going. Once I start pulling stuff out and start setting things up, I'll, it'll click and I'll I'll want to do a little more.
Oh yeah, no, I'll be the same way, and that's the hope for the weekend as well. It's just that then it comes to, I want to do more.
Yeah. Yeah, every year I see those posable skeletons, and I've already got 2, but I'm thinking, well, maybe one more.
Oh, I was out this past weekend and in an area of Maryland that I don't spend a lot of time, and the people out there had gotten really creative with it. And they love skeletons, apparently. Somebody had a pond / like fountain out on the side of their house, and they had posed skeletons among the water fountain and all that, and they were all in various poses, and one of them even, they had taken a pumpkin and carved it so that it was just a helmet on the skull of it, and they even had him with eyes looking up at it like, what the hell do I have on my head? Kind of thing. It was hysterical, and it was fun to see somebody getting into it that much, but I am desperate for one of those 10-foot skeletons.
Oh, absolutely. I'd love to have something like that, and I'd be the one that would leave it up all year long and just get clothes, different outfits for it. Santa hat, bunny ears, right?
I just have this vision of putting it out there because I'll have my regular human-sized skeleton that I will stand on my porch, and I want this one to be leaning along the top of the porch.
Nice.
And it's $300.
Yeah.
So.
Well, even these posable skeletons are almost $100 a piece, and again, I've got a kid in college.
Yes. Yes, and with mine in high school, he's losing a little of his luster for it all.
No, it's a shame.
Well, like, he likes it, but I mean, he doesn't know what to do with it. He knows he's not a trick-or-treater anymore. And the friends don't necessarily have cool parties, so he's sitting in that weird, awkward in-between.
Yeah, I definitely think my son fell into that in the last couple years where, before he went off to school.
He's in theater stuff. He doesn't have a cool group of theater folks that get into Halloween.
You would think.
Yeah. Come on, guys, get it together.
He's working at the Lewisburg Haunted Cave in Indiana.
Oh, nice. Okay, so he's getting his Halloween on better than I thought.
Yeah, exactly. So he did that last year. He's doing it again this year. So he's having a good time.
Good job.
All right. Well, I think that we'll take a break.
Yes.
We'll listen to a promo for another podcast. And then we're going to jump in and talk about Red Planet Mars from 1952.
Welcome to Film Gazers, a podcast focusing on the science fiction, horror, fantasy trinity, and 20th century entertainment. I'm Steph.
I'm Jess. We're cousins/besties. Join us as we reminisce, discuss, and review films from our childhood.
Follow on Instagram at Film Gazers and listen to the show wherever you like to get your podcasts.
Later, taters.
Red Planet Mars. The screenplay was written by John L. Balderston and Anthony Weiler, and it was based on Balderston and John Horr's 1932 play, Red Planet. This was directed by Harry Horner, and this is Horner's first go at directing a feature film. The film stars Peter Graves, Andrea King, and Herbert Berghoff. In a possible future year, an American astronomer notices changes in the canals of Mars. It appears as if the ice caps have been melted and the canals filled with water. Thinking this might be signs of a highly advanced civilization, scientist Chris Cronin and his wife Linda step up their work of trying to contact Mars through a sophisticated radio beam powered by a hydrogen-based transmitter that in itself was based on a Nazi scientist, Franz Calder. They appear to finally make contact and after trial and error begin communicating. as they learn more about Mars and the life there, which is an apparent utopia with free energy from cosmic sources and lifespans of nearly 300 years, the Western world is thrown into chaos as the news that the world may be on the cusp of learning the Martian secrets causes unrest in industries across the globe. Oil and gas workers strike, thinking their livelihoods are threatened. Steel factories shutter due to the lack of fuel. What once seemed to be a gift becomes a curse. Meanwhile, it turns out that Calder has been working for the Soviet Union and has been monitoring the transmissions with his own device. Russia sits and waits for the West to crumble, but they soon find that they have their own problems when the messages from Mars begin asking Earth why they've strayed so far from the teachings of Christ. Religion, long suppressed and denied from the Russian people, begin to resurface, and soon a theocracy overthrows the Russian government. With the world now reuniting peacefully under a newfound love for God, a big question remains. Is the Almighty really on Mars, or are there darker forces at work? This was a first-time watch for me.
Was for me as well.
When I dive into a 1950s sci-fi film, particularly one called Red Planet Mars,
Right.
I expect certain things.
You mean like a red planet named Mars?
Not even so much that, but I just expect... I expect
You
what we've
expect
seen.
aliens and spaceships and...
Well, I expect some of the other things we've seen in 1950s sci-fi. This was so different than anything I've ever seen from the era.
I won't get too much into my views on religion. However, I was insanely surprised by the intellectual quality of the film, honestly. The notion that it did explore, okay, let's say we do have some evidence from the picture stuff that they gathered that Mars has a surface that appears to be changing before their very eyes. That only suggests that somebody is manipulating it. And then they go through the process of trying to communicate. And even I absolutely adored that the son of the scientist injects into a conversation with an admiral as they're trying to get a grip on how they're what they're even gonna try to do. They're not sure if they're getting feedback, like is it just a bounce back of their signal or what, but they actually start to tackle the notion. We might be trying to communicate, but we there's no way we speak the same language. So it's unclear what's actually happening. And then the notion of injecting mathematics, a mathematical constant like pi, and using that as a primer to start the dialogue, and watching that process and them having the conversations around it and waiting for it, like that was all amazing that you put that thought into it. And then they kind of ignore the whole part how they jump instantly from having some mathematical connection to we can now translate each other's conversation to a point where we're asking full questions and getting full answers. That was a bit of a leap, but even when they do that, let's say that they did find their way to it, to actually start analyzing what would be the socio-political implications of doing it. Like, from a 1952 sci-fi film, I got all of that. That was insane. I was loving it.
Yeah, right away, very early on, I was surprised when the discussion started coming up that, like, oh, so if you create this, unlimited power source, what happens to all the coal and oil? And they were like, oh, we're gonna discuss this. We're gonna bring that up.
Right. Well, and have the legitimate human reaction in the moment, without seeing that if they were to gather the knowledge that the Martians supposedly had and implement it, people don't immediately see the good of that. They just see the destruction of the what they know now. I mean, essentially, if you could do what the Martians had claimed that they had done, well, our economies don't mean anything. Our the current planet, even today, all revolve around the imaginary concept of money. A human construct. We don't actually have to live this way. We choose to live this way. If you take on the Martian thing and take away the question mark of what, no more energy issues, no more food issues, and health is just likely a pill away for given 1952 mentality. The fact that humanity can't wrap its brain around it in the moment is so real, and they actually nailed it in this 1952 film.
Absolutely, and I think that is. I immediately kind of my thought immediately jumps to like the quote unquote history of Star Trek.
Yeah.
Where while they didn't really broach it in the original series, so I don't think we can necessarily give Roddenberry credit for this, but by the time you get to like Next Gen and such, the idea that Earth pretty much destroys itself before we can start rebuilding and create this utopia on Earth without the need of money and that sort of thing. We have to be knocked down to zero first, because you can't just switch over. This film shows what would really happen if you suddenly said, you don't need money anymore.
Right.
We have replicators. We have, all this. We have this technology. We there's no hunger. There's no disease. Yeah, this turmoil that you see going on in this film is what would naturally transpire with news like that, with technology like that.
Yeah, you see the leaders of industry trying to get together to somehow even shore up what it is that they do in order to maintain the status quo without seeing the promise of what could be. That is so totally us. that is humanity. The greed would just be dripping, and the notion that it could all slip away in a moment's notice, the way that people cling to it anyway, despite the fact you got a shot at better, but you're gonna cling to the worst of it on the way.
Oh, absolutely. There's people here that are looking as like, oh, okay, if we could, harness the cosmic energy, who's going to control that?
Right.
It's all about who's going to control it. It's
Right.
not, they're going to give it to everybody. No, someone's got to be in charge of that.
And that's what
would happen. And then what can we charge for it?
it's what it's exhausting as humans. This notion that somebody has to have more than others drives me insane.
Yeah.
But at any rate, the notion that they were going through this. And then the way that you told it, I took something slightly different, and maybe that's just the way my brain's going to latch onto it. When they get the first translations of what they believe is, they've asked the question, okay, you've got all this technology, you've got unlimited energy, and it's free to use. How have you not blown yourself up with it? And the answer that comes back, the first go round on the interpretation, if I remember correctly, is they say it comes off kind of the Martian supreme leader at first has more or less dictated that we should all care for one another, more or less. Since this is an interpretation kind of thing, a translation, they don't know that they're nailing every nuance of it. I leave enough room that, yes, the rest of the movie now interprets this as, including the 300-year lifespan and the timing for all of this, that essentially the notion of Christ is the same as what they're hearing out of Mars. I don't know that I latched on to that's 100% true. It's the perception, and this would be a very human thing too. oh, we like what we heard. We're going with that. so
No, absolutely. Because what comes through is like someone you told you how to live 7 lifetimes ago,
right.
And they figure that well, okay, Martians live 300 years. That's 2,100 years, and they're talking about the Sermon on the Mount.
Yeah, yeah. There was a lot of leaping to get to that. There's not necessarily a correlation there, but they took it as such, and you were supposed to really latch onto the if we could all finally get to that point where we actually believe the stuff that we say we believe in and really make it part of who we are from here on out, we have a path forward. I can get on board with that idea. I didn't care for the fact that they felt the need to do it religiously, but given 1952, given that was the thrust of this film anyway, and given that would have been the easiest way to get to the answer that they were looking for, which is the only way to do what we've done is to actually treat each other like people. Mm-hmm. You're all equal. You're all in this together. That's how you get to not blowing each other up on a daily basis.
I read a couple articles on this film. I think there was a really good article on TCM.
Okay.
And they brought up the point, and I think it's very true, that this film is definitely a product of the time in which it was made. Mm-hmm. It was made in prime McCarthy era.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it was red under the bed, anti-communist, a lot of stuff that isn't too unfamiliar to us now in the 21st, in 2025, unfortunately. But yeah, this film definitely felt like it was almost made to placate someone like McCarthy and his followers.
I could see that.
Yeah, it was just an interesting take on it, and it kind of makes a little bit of sense when after watching the film, then reading the article, and just them saying this is kind of a reactionary film after a lot of what's going on with the McCarthy hearings.
No, I can totally see that, but while even maybe feeding into that, it's hard not to get on board with the message.
No, absolutely. Whether in this film, it is definitely leaning heavy into the Judeo-Christian teachings.
The funny thing is, even again for a 1952 film, it was careful to not necessarily exclude other they mentioned Buddhism, they mentioned Judaism, they mentioned Muslim, they mentioned that essentially we all inherently have the same idea, and we are now hearing it from a world outside of ours as well. So why shouldn't we all gather around this same core idea?
I will say that you put it exactly right. They all get mentions.
Yes.
And
Christianity is still hardcore out front. I mean, for God's sakes, our bad guy lives under a statue of Christ. But all that said, I give them a little credit for at least not making it all just about Jesus is real and now we're going to listen because Mars says so.
Yeah. It was just the whole thing with everything that was going on the U.S. side with the idea that, is this the Almighty? Right. Is he communicating to us from Mars? And at the same time, we have this Russian espionage story going on in the middle of the film, with the Nazi scientists in hiding high in the Andes, the Russians using him, and all of that goes on at the same time. It's like there's a lot going on in this film.
There is, yes.
And then, like, as I said in the synopsis, Russia suddenly, their government gets overthrown by a theocracy
Right.
towards the end. I'm like, wow, this film's only an hour and a half long, and I feel like we've been here a while now. There's a lot to unpack in here.
There is, yeah. Like I said, I was just throughout the entirety of it all, the fact that they squeezed that many kind of topics and at least paid a little bit more than lip service, like they thought some of it through, despite some of the ridiculous components to this. I wasn't expecting that from this film at all.
No, the story it was telling, and you can argue in multiple directions of whether it was good, it was bad, was it preaching, was it, whatever.
It's probably
you
yes to all.
yeah, true. But what it was actually done, though, it was still actually written relatively intelligently.
It was.
The acting was actually pretty good.
Yeah.
I found Linda to be a little uneven, let's say.
A little bit, yeah.
She would occasionally just suddenly, or the destruction of the world, like, whoa. This is why they started passing out mood pills.
She could be intense, rather unprovoked at times.
Yeah. It's almost like she was there. She was we have to have the other side of the conversation, but we don't want to bog the film down too much, so we'll just have her blow up every now and again with the counterpoint.
Well, and it was the moments in which she was choosing, like after they reviewed the changes in topology through the photos that were taken, and Peter Graves is excited to go back and try again, see if we can't get some more communication going, and she just completely flies off the handle in this moment and goes, "Don't do it! Don't start the generator again! Don't do it!" And like, you're his wife and partner in this, so where the hell did that come from? Yeah, there was a lot of that with her.
If she had a sense of foreboding or something, talk about that, but don't just out of nowhere throw this dark cloth over everyone else's shine.
Yeah, no, it was a bit much. And then they just it's weird where 1950 still makes its way into this. Like there's a weird moment where their oldest son goes out of his way to point out that everybody thinks you're the youngest looking mother. Like, what the hell movie am I watching now? Like, it didn't belong anywhere in the conversation. It was just strange.
The way you put that, 1950 shows itself in this film. I mentioned at the top of my synopsis that in the possible future year, because you get some impression because of the technology that's around them, their transmitter and everything, and then the fact that their home has a flat screen TV over the fireplace.
Yeah.
It's like, so is this the future, yet the future never progressed beyond 1952 because the car is 1950s. They're still dealing with Cold War Iron Curtain a la 1950s.
Right. They're still talking about a Nazi that built this thing and escaped to Russia, and he's still alive.
Yeah, he's in maybe 40, 50 years old, something like that.
Yeah.
So it is, maybe it's not a future year, it's an alternate Earth.
Perhaps, yeah. At any rate, yeah, they got some kitschy new gear, but they didn't progress very far.
No, it's very strange. It's just, I don't know. It'd be curious. This is one of those films where it'd be curious to know what the filmmakers were thinking as they built the sets and started kind of getting the story together. Why do the flat screen? Because that not only is it technology that isn't going to exist for another 40 or 50 years in the real world, that's going to require you to do like cutting in mats and everything into your film so you could have pictures within this flat screen, because that doesn't exist.
Yes.
So you got extra time and expense going into the making of this film. So it's like, what was the motivation to do that?
Right.
What were you thinking? What was your plan? Was it something? Were there other things that you wanted to tell in this story that didn't make it?
It's interesting you brought that up because, while I watched that, I kind of glossed right over that, and I didn't think about it much at the time.
Because now it's ubiquitous. It's just
right.
You see it. It's no big deal. Someone mentioned to me once how the old Get Smart. Did you ever see that?
I'm familiar
Okay.
with it.
The big gag often in that is where he'd be in like the movie theater or he'd be walking down the street and suddenly a phone would be ringing.
Yeah.
And everyone's like, what in the world is that? And it was his, of course, it's his shoe phone. Right.
Shoe.
Yeah. Yeah, it was his shoe phone. And someone pointed out once, is like, that joke really, it doesn't work anymore.
Yeah.
Anyone born in the last 25 years, 30 years, whatever, you hear a phone ringing in the theater. I guess the funny bit is it's his shoe, but
right.
The thrust of that joke, why it's so crazy, it doesn't hold up.
Right.
And I feel like that's sort of in the same discussion can be had about, oh yeah, they're watching it on their TV. Like, it's 1952.
Yes, that technology didn't exist.
It's a little bit like Dick Tracy and his TV wristwatch, radio wristwatch or whatever. You look at that now and I go, well, yeah, that's my Apple Watch. Yeah, but
that wasn't a thing then. We were decades off of that. Yes, no, yeah, and it's funny that I got caught by that. It didn't faze me, but I get. What was the thought process there? Now getting through the story, how do you feel about the ending?
I'll admit that the film lost me a little when it went, isn't religion great? And I'm fine with the whole let's all get along.
Yeah.
And I don't want to go in too deep into the, like, dislike, or opinions on religion or whatever, but I can't help it if I'm kind of review this film and how it struck me. I didn't care so much for the very heavy-handed religion is great and everything's wonderful.
This will save everything.
Yeah, this is going to save everything, and maybe it's just because I've watched so many films where, like, you watch so many horror films and vampire films from the 40s, 50s, 60s, whatever, and it's the image of the cross, and now everything's going to be fine, and it's like, maybe it's just I've just been a little overwhelmed by it.
Yeah.
So when this film is so heavy into it, it's just maybe a little much. So when the revelation comes that it was all Calder.
Yes.
They haven't been receiving messages from Mars.
Right.
Calder has been transmitting, bouncing them off the upper atmosphere with his own transmitter. The film won me back.
Yes.
At that moment.
Yes. Yeah, no, I was totally digging the very dark overtone of an evil genius just getting his retribution on a world that didn't like the way that his ilk wanted to perceive the world. So he combated it with the very thing they wanted more than anything. And
Absolutely.
now how everybody gets their comeuppance is, I'm going to pull the rug out from under you. Mm-hmm. That was awesome.
Yeah, he's like the ultimate villain. What does he want? Chaos. He doesn't want anything. He just wants to see it all burn.
Right. Yes. He's very much the Joker from The Dark Knight. He just tear it all down.
Yeah, I really liked that. I thought that was, talk about like intelligent. I mean, that is, wow, 1952, and this is the direction they went. I thought that was brilliant.
It was right up until it wasn't.
But yeah, they have to throw in the, oh, but wait, this message isn't from you. Oh,
Yeah.
all right.
Yeah. And then, even though this is where it did kind of ruin it a bit, it's already bad enough that we're going to go ahead and say, no, this is all real. The Martians are there. They are now communicating here in the 11th hour as we're having our climactic scene. And if that was all contained in that house, if that had all just happened there, and the world doesn't know any better up to this point, and then when the hydrogen goes off and it blows up the lab and they're all killed, that in and of itself, letting the world go on with the perception of what had happened before, would have been interesting enough. But the fact that the military has always been able to intercept what was coming from their transmitter, meaning they get to know what the last words from the Martians were, is a cop-out. I would have liked seeing this movie leave it on the edge. Like, you've already gone on a religious route, and now you have martyrs. And you could have left, because they still kind of leaned into that anyways. That the worst part of this movie is when that one admiral that was buddy with the scientist puts his arms around the boys and go, "You're so lucky that they were your parents." I'm like, what the hell is that?
Now, off you go into the 1950s foster system. Good luck.
Right? Don't feel bad that they were vaporized outside your home. It had a moment where it could have taken a very intellectual process, regardless of the religious overtones, and still left you with that both intellectual and religious moment, that whole notion of, which is where religion really sits anyways, is that notion of you just have to believe. You don't necessarily get all the information.
Yeah, I would have really liked if they ended with the fact that, the lab is destroyed, the transmitter is destroyed. They don't know if they'll ever be able to reconstruct.
Right.
It may take years or decades before they can manage to rebuild another transmitter to try to continue the communication with Mars. But until then, let's live with what we've learned and continue our lives till that day when we can once again communicate with, and make sure that the Almighty or whatever he is will be proud of us when that day comes. That would have been the way for me.
Yes.
That would have been the way for this film to end.
They would have, but they felt the need to just tie it all up in a bow and make it 100%. This is what we were trying to say all along, and let it go that way. And then ending it oddly with the whole massaging the boy's arms is like, as you rightfully say, now go off into the foster care system. Like, yeah, it was not the send off for what was actually a fairly well thought out film, I thought, to that point.
Step back a little ways, back to the confrontation between Cronin, his wife, and Chris, Linda, and Calder in the lab. Chris has unhooked this tank of hydrogen.
Yes.
Which they've made a big point, which is, again, 1950s, this is cool. They ain't smoking around this stuff.
Yes, but you knew the entire time that was Chekhov's hydrogen tank.
Oh, absolutely. But he's unhooked the pipe to this thing, so now the lab is filled with this odorless, colorless hydrogen gas, very flammable. And Linda and Chris are there, ready to sacrifice themselves to save this new world, to stop Calder from revealing the truth to everybody. That's pretty damn heavy. Again, for 1952, not what you really expect.
Especially since this was a set of parents with their children only in the next building over.
Yeah. Well, and Chris even tries to, like, I want you to be with the kids now.
Yes.
And tries to shove her out. And she's insistent on, like, no, we need to finish this together. And then when she finally agrees to leave, Calder's the one that stops her and says, oh, what, you think I'm going to let you just go and call your military friends? I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, well, now they're stuck. But then, of course, they figure out a way to get around the idea of these people committing suicide and sacrificing themselves.
Yeah.
But still, I found it a lot of really heavy subject matter, which I was not expecting in this film, just throughout.
Well, yeah, and that's where that scene becomes disappointing, because if you had ended with that would have been really interesting. But then you get the Martian thing, and then it almost doesn't make sense when Calder decides to fire his gun at the transmitter, knowing full well, he's already seen, oh hell, you have unhooked the tanks. Moment, we could all be dead. They're still trying to play with their lighter to try to make this happen. Other than the fact that his plan just unraveled in front of his eyes, the motivation to fire off the gun and murder the three of them didn't entirely make sense at that stage.
Yeah, because he even yells out, no, you won't take this from me.
Right. But it's already been taken.
Yeah, so I think in that moment, he just sort of forgets everything else because he's just dead set on destroying the world.
I guess that you're supposed to take this as an emotional reaction to the moment.
Yes.
But still, this was also a man of science who was also very set in his way on how he wanted to do this. So ending his own life in the moment that plan unraveled still didn't entirely make sense to me. Like, I feel like you'd want to try to come back around on this.
I think in that moment, he completely forgot about the hydrogen. That was just, I'm lashing out at these people that are trying to take this moment away from me.
Yeah, I got you. It just...
Yeah.
I wanted more of that to go differently than it did, so... And I'm not going to get it, so...
No, unfortunately not. No sequel.
No. No, but I think if you had redone that, you had... Not that they would have made a sequel to this, because that was not the way of doing these things.
No, absolutely
in 1952. Not. But it would have been interesting to take the concept, end it more like we're talking about, and then like having that moment 10, 20 years down the road when the world has had to exist in this new world order and they finally put the technology back together. You could have some fun with that. But
oh, absolutely. Because I would love the fact that they finally, they communicate with them, and maybe they send a ship to Mars, and Mars goes, we don't know who you are.
Right.
Wait, weren't you talking to it? No, I don't.
By the way, zap and attack. That's what it is. Mars Attacks is the sequel to this film.
There you go. Exactly. Perfect. We watched it in the wrong order.
We did. I'm sorry. It was just a bad call on my part.
Yeah, bad translations and everything.
Yeah, quite.
So you have anything else you want to say about the Red Planet Mars?
No, it was kind of I have some mixed feelings about it, but it was a pleasant surprise. It was a lot more than I was expecting from this.
I did not get any social media. Were you able to dig up any reviews of the day?
two pleasant things. One, yeah, thank you Wikipedia and those that did their bibliographies. But not only did I get 2 reviews from 1952, but I was actually able to go through without paywall to get the actual articles.
Nice.
So, starting off with Variety, we only get a staff writer as the credit. And it is the briefest of reviews, but even with what I've got, they say, despite its title, Red Planet Mars takes place on terra firma, sans spaceships, cosmic rays, or space cadets. It's a fantastic concoction from a play by John L. Balderston and John Hauer, delving into the realm of science, politics, religion, world affairs, and communism. Despite the hokum dished out, the actors concerned turned in credible for performances. That's as much of the review as you actually get.
And that's fine. And, it brought up a good point. I kind of forgot. I was saying that this film comes, right on the toes of the McCarthy era and everything, but I immediately forgot that it was based on a play that was written 20 years prior.
Yeah.
People will invent time machines for different reasons. I would love, and I've come across this several times, even on Orphan Entertainment,
Yeah.
where a film was based on a play, and Liddy and I have wondered how different was that play than the film. We can see where this film could have been a play, but how could they have pulled, XYZ off in a play versus when they could do it in a film? I would like to just go back in time and see some of these plays that these films were based on,
Right.
which I would obviously, there is no video or,
Right.
film evidence of any of these things, but it'd be fascinating to see how did they pull this out? What were the themes of 1932?
Right. Yeah, no, and where did liberties come into it? He said, just because based on doesn't mean identical.
Right. Well, yeah, very good point. Yeah.
So, but yes, you would love to see the comparison between the original product and the final product. So,
Absolutely.
now the other one that I did get was from New York Times, and the credit is only AW. That's all that was in that article.
Oh, I love AW.
Yeah,
Great.
AW is great. In an era of A-bombs, B-pictures, Cold Wars, and science fiction, I really wish he could have figured out how to get the a D in there or something, because he was going
Yep.
down the alphabet. Such items as Red Planet Mars would seem to be inevitable. But this excursion into the terrifying Blue Yonder, which incidentally never leaves California, the site of the experiment, switches from its pseudoscientific exploration with such suddenness as to give even the most dedicated pulp fiction adventurer the megrims. I almost read it as migraine, but I don't know what
Okay.
MEGRIMS is. And I meant to look it up before we recorded. Anyway, in the midst of this tall tale, the producers have seen fit to introduce a plea for a return to religion. It's a device that, in this case, is neither original nor convincing, and serves only to make for loads of uninspired palaver about the comparative values of research and faith. So, for 1952, this was someone not taken by the religious overtones of the film.
Interesting. Very good chance that was H.W. Weiler, who was a writer and critic, best known for being a film critic and motion picture editor for the New York Times.
That's probably him, but only went by AW in the article.
Okay. Yeah, well, I just kind of Googled AW and New York Times 1950s reviewer, and that was like the one thing that came up. There's not a whole lot of information immediately available for him, but I can't imagine that. Oh, he signed some of his reviews with the initials AW. There you go. That was him. H.W. Weiler.
Full credit given. But yes, those were the two reviews, and an interesting mix, a little uneven. Not. I'm interested in the fact that in 1952, that critics of the time didn't necessarily buy into the heavy religious theme either, despite the fact that this was also not a film they were expecting. They were expecting bombs and lasers and space aliens, that kind of stuff.
I can relate.
Yes. Yeah, at no point did I not think that we weren't going to get something that actually had to do with Mars,
Yeah.
other than some pictures that were also not real.
Yeah, which weren't correct.
Right.
Well, then I think that will wrap up Red Planet Mars. Yes, we have spoiled it, but it is definitely worth giving it a watch for yourself just to see. I'm sure Tom and I did not do as good a job explaining some of the themes that go on throughout this film. I think you'd find it very interesting. It's not a 1950s sci-fi film that you think it is.
No, it is far more thoughtful.
This was definitely a more of a drama and a political piece.
It was.
Sci-fi, as far as, I think that pretty far down the list on what this film is.
Yeah, no, you could easily have made this almost any other way and not had to have the Mars component in it, but that's the hook to get you in the theater.
Yeah. Well, I'm also imagining a bunch of 10-year-old kids going in for their Saturday matinee, dropping their dime, and then sitting down to this.
Yeah, and then walking out mad. There wasn't one rubber monster at all.
Well, those kids will have had a much better time a year later if they went and saw War of the Worlds, which is what we are going to watch next. And we're also going to go ahead and take a listen and talk a little bit about the 1938 Mercury Theater radio program by the same name, of course, put on by Orson Welles. That's going to be a good time.
It is. It may even inspire me beyond that, because I have access to War of the Worlds, the TV series from the late 80s, early 90s.
I remember watching that a little bit. I didn't care for it all that much. I think I watched it because it was sci-fi and it was on.
Right.
But...
Yeah, no, actually, I remember to this day very fondly because it was paired with Star Trek The Next Generation. So you watched Next Gen, and then War of the Worlds was on right after that.
And that is probably why I watched it.
Yeah, so for a good, for my early high school years where no car and not a group of friends to go hang out with, Friday nights, that was the ticket.
All right, well, if you get into it, we will talk about that a little bit in a couple weeks.
Yep.
I'm looking forward. This is one of my favorite films.
Yes, it is one of mine.
It is also a film with a little bit of a religious bent towards the end.
There is a little bit, yes.
Yeah, so we're not going to get away from that entirely. I'm looking forward to listening to the radio program again. It's been a long time since I've heard it.
Yeah.
There are moments, though, that are still in my head that I remember the first time I heard it, I about knocked out of my chair. I thought how impressive that was.
There's that, and then just the lore behind it. The fact that the hysteria that actually set in for those that they tuned in sometime after the show had started, and because the way the radio play works out, it sounds like somebody interrupting a broadcast of something to give real news, and the actual hysteria that it set off in some cases is just fascinating.
Yep, absolutely. I think we'll talk a little bit about that too, because there is some legitimate truth to some of that. There was some definite exaggerations to exactly how far-reaching that was. Well, until then, thanks for listening to the Time Shifters podcast. We'd love to hear your thoughts on this episode, whether it's about the film or anything we talked about at the top of the show. You can reach out via email or drop a comment in any of our social media posts. Just follow the link in the show notes or head to timeshifterspodcast.com.
If you've got a moment, please consider leaving a rating or review. It really helps more people to discover the show, and who knows, they might become time shifters too.
If you're feeling extra generous, you can toss a little monetary support our way. You can go to ko-fi.com/TSPOE podcasts. Every bit goes towards web hosting and production costs. The show will always be free, but any help is truly, truly appreciated.
And if the Martians haven't made want a thing that has gone away, but you do still want stuff, check out our merch at TeePublic or Dashery. Links are in the show notes and our website. You'll be helping us out and supporting some awesome independent artists at the same time.
That is going to do it for this episode. Thanks again, everybody. We'll catch you next time. Bye.
See ya.